Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully, this is not too loud. Trying to make sure that it doesn't blow people's ears out. But everybody, welcome in again to The Charge, giving the latest NBA news and rumors and also basketball opinions. And it would definitely help if I showed my face. And here we are, guys. Welcome once again to The Charge. Of course, this is, your host, Bernie Morris, bringing you the latest NBA news and rumors and also basketball opinions. And guys, do we have a lot of basketball news and rumors to go over today? Sorry for the not streaming last night. I know that we do try and stream every day, Monday through Friday, time subject to change, of course, but definitely I'm trying to think what's the terminology for it. I fumbled the ball on this one. So I want to apologize to anybody that was looking forward to a stream last night, Supreme Gamer, Tyrese, or any of my other regulars that are here in the chat, Gabby, Sean. Again, want to apologize for not giving you a live stream. But we are here today to talk about some juicy rumors coming into the NBA, as we got John Collins calling out Trae Young in a film session. We also got the Ball brothers playing tonight in a 4:30 game against each other. So this will be a fun one to watch. Brother versus brother, who's got the upper hand. And then, of course, we got this 76ers Seth Curry coronavirus news where he got it, and now the whole team looks like they're going to have to quarantine. It's just going to be a huge, kind of situation at hand where we're going to see, what's going to be going on. Yo, what's up, Logan? How you doing, man? Logan, if you ever want to come on the show, man, let me know. I can get you into the Discord, and we can kind of talk some hoops if you're down for it. Today, or if you want to talk later on, it's fine with me, too. Just let me know what you think about that. But we are here to talk about some juicy NBA news and rumors. And before we do that, please remember to hit that like button. Also remember to hit that subscribe button if you're new to The Charge. Of course, guys, like I said, we bring you the latest NBA news and rumors and also basketball opinions. And you should hear the UPS guy driving by really quick. Maybe? Yeah, maybe a little bit. Anyway, here we go. Let me see if I can get you on here, Logan. Logan, do you want to get on today, or do you want to get on at some other point? But whether Logan joins or not, we are going to be talking about this John Collins news. So let's roll it over. Transition. But anyway, guys, we're here to talk about, like I said, the John Collins news, because this, to me, is probably the biggest one, because we all know that this is what's going to be causing I would say the Atlanta Hawks, either they would get to a championship, or not even to a championship, at least get to the playoffs and see if they can make a little bit of a playoff run. And that's, of course, John Collins challenging how Trae Young runs Atlanta's offense during film session. Of course, this is coming from Chris K and, of course, Sam Amick from The Athletic. So this is what it has to say. Still working. Let's plan next Saturday. Okay, I got you. Next week. Gotcha. But let's read the story. During a film session this week, after blowing a 15-point lead to the second half to the New York Knicks. Whoops. Let me see if I can just adjust that. Okay, we're just gonna go like that. We're just gonna deal with this. Raised several questions or issues about how the Atlanta Hawks are functioning with Trae Young running the offense. The sources tell The Athletic. Collins discussed the Atlanta Hawks need to get offensively sets more quickly and limit Trae Young's early shot clock attempts, and leaves his teammates uninvolved. Collins also shared a desire for more ball movement and flow of offense. While there is no back and forth between the two, Young has made it clear that he strongly disagrees with the assessment of Collins. Trae is my brother regardless, Collins said, who chose not to elaborate further, told The Athletic via text message. The Hawks currently rank 5th in NBA offensive efficiency at 114 points per 100 possessions. Sources within the Hawks pointed to the recent contract extension negotiations with Collins when thought of for a possible explanation for his frustration. Collins turned down a deal worth more than $90 million over 4 years, according to sources. And really, I don't think it's really necessarily the idea that he turned down a $90 million contract as to why Collins is upset because he's trying to get his bag. I think what it mostly is for me, and what I'm noticing, is that I do believe that, I don't necessarily think that Collins is wrong, but I don't think Collins is going to get his way in this situation. I love Trae Young. I think he's good, but at the same time, there is some criticism, just like I have of Luka Doncic right now, not really facilitating and, running the offense the right way that I would like. But, the same thing, like I said, with the guy like Trae Young, his passing is phenomenal, but I feel like at times he's not utilizing his passing more. I mean, let's go to YouTube really quick and kind of look at this situation at hand, right? Let's see here. Go to TRAE Young and seeing if there's any highlights really quick. I mean, we'll kind of look at the Z highlights and kind of talk about this, right? We got some basketball stuff here. I mean, we're gonna look at this. You know, Trae Young had yo, what's up, P? How you doing, man? We're gonna look at this this sort of situation that is at hand, Pete, about John Collins and Trae Young right now. John Collins for Julius Randle right now. Honestly, I think the Hawks would actually not mind that trade at all. I mean, let's look at this really quick. You know, I mean, this is the thing. I mean,
John, he didn't leave his feet, held his ground.
Trae crosses over on Knox, puts it in, and a foul.
You know, these are pretty quick possessions. I mean, let's see here.
Trae on the lob. Collins corrals it and puts it in on the right side.
Let's see here. Again, you know, we're only going to show a little bit of this because I don't want to get in trouble. You know, this is kind of early in the shot clock again. You know, trying to get, like, and that's the thing, like, the way that the offense is ran for the Atlanta Hawks, the way that everything is ran for them, it's going to be a situation where you're going to see them try to run a fast break offense. You're going to try and see them try to go as fast as they can in order to get that situation at hand, right? They're trying to outscore you and outpossession you and giving you all this sort of situation. And so when I really look at the situation at hand, when I really see everything, I think in my heart of heart that although I don't necessarily think that John Collins, well, I think where John Collins is coming from, obviously, is that, like, he's trying to make the most money he can. He's trying to, you know, show that he is a worthy asset worth more than just worth more than just 90+ million a year. He's trying to show that he's actually worth, like, you know, whatever, you know, probably like 110, 120, probably about like where he wants to be at. And so at the end of the day, you know, I do think that John Collins can be worth that much. But I don't know if this is necessarily the right thing to do. You know, the team is looking good right now. I know they have a couple losses, obviously, to the New York Knicks after getting such a big win over the Brooklyn Nets the other day. And so, like I said, this team defensively is going to be the reason why this team doesn't go as further as they want to get to. Like, I understand that this team is good. I understand that this team offensively is probably the best, I think, in the NBA so far. But defensively is where they're not consistent at. And as you can tell, when their shots aren't falling, this is just kind of one of those things where it would be, you know, if they were consistent defensively, I think we would have a better team. But at the end of the day, the Atlanta Hawks have to realize that they're going to have to get better on defense in order to actually contend for a championship and actually contend to be in the playoffs. And right now, we're just not seeing that from the Atlanta Hawks at the moment. And I want to see that from them. I think this team is really good. I told my boy Pete, I told my friend Josh, you know, they're a good team. They're a solid team. I like their team. But defensively, they are just Swiss cheese. And it's just one of those things that I want to see a little bit better from them. I want to see a better defensive effort from all those guys. You know, Trae Young is obviously going to be the free safety of the team. He's not going to be the guy that you go after. But at the end of the day, we do need to look at it and really assess like what's going on with the Atlanta Hawks at the moment, because right now it is looking very scary that defensively they can't do it. And when you have a frustrated guy in John Collins, you know, I don't mind him getting upset, because at the end of the day, you know, you want to get the best shot possible. And I think at some points, you know, you see Trae Young take early transition threes, take early, early shot clock threes and kind of not really move the ball around. And you're kind of see that in some possessions, especially during the final essence of a game, like he's not delivering because he's taking way too many shots. He's not really being clinical with his chances. And then Pete, you said, I think the Hawks would throw in GSJ or Frank along with Julius, and it could be a win-win for both teams, especially Frank, great defensive guard, a major weakness for the Hawks, and Randle scoring big to replace a scoring big. If I was John Collins, I'd be pissed myself. Yeah, I mean, like, that's the thing. Like, I would be pissed too, because at the end of the day, you know, like I said, I love Trae Young. I think he's a great player. I think he's going to be tremendous. But you do have to realize that the way that you're perceived right now from your teammates, and maybe this is John Collins speaking for everybody, you never know. You could see him just being upset with what's going on, you know, be upset that you can't really get the offense going, being upset that, you know, there's many times where Trae Young could easily pass the ball off to another guy and that guy gets an easier look, or by swinging the ball, you create a lot of, movement to where the defense shifts, and then you're able to easily dump off to, you know, Clint Capella or Bruno Fernando or even John Collins on an alley-oop. I mean, you could see that stuff. And it is kind of frustrating that we're not getting that from a guy or I should say, we're not getting that from the Atlanta Hawks at the moment. We'll see what Lloyd Pierce has to say about it. You know, I'm curious to know what everybody thinks about this in the comment section down below, because this is a very interesting story. I mean, if we go to the comments, you know, we got 7 comments. You got people saying that it's Luka over TRAE. Collins isn't wrong. Young is great. Young PG. It's hard position to learn the NBA, so I see him adjusting the games as it continues to slow down for him. Anyway, yes, I agree with Collins. And then you got here, if I'm the Hawks and it's clear you won't resign, I might call the Warriors that they'd be open to moving Draymond. Collins, Snell, and Bruno Fernando works in the checker. Trade ID. Dubs rebuild on the fly with Wiseman and Collins up front. Hawks solidify their D and take TRAE off the ball out of necessity. He's absolutely right. Playing isolation, Harden ball is not the way to build a contender. You know, and that's the thing. Like, I think a lot of people are kind of comparing it to James Harden, the way that TRAE plays. I mean, we look at the highlights a little bit. Let's kind of watch a little bit more. Probably going to mute the sound so we don't get anything. I mean, again, early shot clock, but passing it off to Clint Capella. I mean, that's what I want to see from Trae Young. Again, Trae Young, a little bit deeper in the shot clock. You know, DeAndre Hunter going with the finish. Trae Young once again. I mean, like, here's the thing. I think John Collins is getting some good repetition. They're getting some good looks. I mean, we're seeing that right now. See here, early transition. Trae Young looking, gets his big man. I mean, there's times where you have to go fast and there's times where you have to go slow. And obviously, this is just the highlight, so we can't really see the whole game. Otherwise, I know the stream will get debunked, or not debunked, but more so stopped and not being able to look at. And they're going to close the stream due to policy violations, even though I don't think there's any. But kind of going to what I'm saying here is that, like, at the end of the day, you know, I do think that Trae Young does need to slow down a little bit on the offensive end. I mean, let's look at the Atlanta Hawks right now. Let's go to the official. Let's go to the rosters here. Looking at the depth. Actually, let's look at the stats really quick. You know, Trae Young averaging 25 points per game. You see Trae Young with 8.4 assists. I feel like his assists have gone down each and every game. Copyright debunked. Let's go to Trae Young really quick and just look at the last couple games. I mean, if we look at the stats, I'm sure hopefully you can give me... Oh, let's go game log here. And we can really start looking at the assists, because the assists and the turnovers have really started to creep up a little bit for him. You know, we got, you know, the last couple games, you know, the first game he played against the Bulls had 4. You know, Memphis had 2, Detroit had 3, had 5 in the Brooklyn game. And then when you go back to Brooklyn, had 3. Cleveland game, he had 6. Knicks, he had 8. And then, of course, the last night, or I believe 2 nights ago, he had 8. So you're seeing definitely the turnover starting to rise up a little bit. And, you know, for a guy like Trae Young, you know, the assists are starting to go down a little bit. I mean, look at this. You know, he had 7 in the first game, 9, 6, 11, 8. And then on the second, you had 10. Monday, you had 14. And then the Charlotte game, you had 3. And you can see there, he was 2 for 9, wasn't really effective. Then in the New York Knicks game, he was 9 for 22, 6 of 16, 7 for 21. I mean, like, these are numbers where I really don't want my point guard shooting that many times. Like, I understand that he's a great shooter. I understand that you want to get him good looks. But, man, it is hard for me to kind of warrant that. I mean, like, the thing is, like, his three-point shot is probably what's his best, I would say, arsenal, or, like, what his best asset is of him. More so than I feel like his driving or his floaters. I feel like the floaters are very inconsistent. I do feel like him going to the lane is very, like, he still needs to add that to his bag. But what I'm seeing here is that, you know, he's shooting 0 for 3 on Monday or Wednesday. On Monday, he shot, I believe, 1 for 6 and, you know, went 12 of 15 from the line. And then it's like 2 for 5, 3 for 8, 0 for 4, 2 for 6, 1 for 7 against Memphis, 5 for 6 against the Chicago Bulls. I mean, the thing is, like, especially for a guy like him, I think he needs to shoot a little bit more threes rather than shooting, you know, contested layups or contested floaters, because, I mean, you're seeing here that, like, his 2-point shot, I believe, is not very good. I mean, let's go to Basketball Reference really quick and kind of look at, like, his stats from this aspect, right? Let's go to Trae Young. Whoops. And kind of look at, like, his 2-point percentage for the season. You know, it is better, I would say, you know, 48 point something percent. But I do think that the 48%, hey, Yoy, how you doing, man? Is not looking too hot. And, you know, we kind of go here to his field goal percentage, 43%, not necessarily where I want my point guard to be at. I want my point guard to mostly be kind of at the, I would say, like 45 to 47% range. And right now it's just not looking like it at the moment. Like I said, the 2-point percentage obviously at 48%. I think it could be a lot better because, I mean, at the end of the day, he does shoot a lot of floaters. He does shoot, you know, he's 58 for 135. Not necessarily the best, not necessarily the worst. And the 3-point percentage at 31%, that's probably his worst percentage I think he's ever shot. Well, it is his worst percentage I believe he's ever shot since like his rookie year. And even then, his rookie year wasn't too bad, 32%. You know, 36% last year, that's a great number. That's like 36 to 38 is a great NBA number. But when you shoot under that and you go like 34, I think is the minimum that you should be shooting 3-point shots if you're trying to chuck them up. But right now, Trae Young is not doing too hot in that aspect. I think he needs to get back to that game. I think if the Hawks don't check Trae, and this is of course coming from Pete, if the Hawks don't check Trae, they're in for a rough situation. He's just not ready to make the play the way he is, or they're ready not to play the way he is. And to make things more fair, I'd say the same thing for Luka right now. Yeah, I mean, that's true. I think Luka and Trae Young right now are in the similar boat. And even Marvin Bagley to an extent, right? You know, I rag on Marvin Bagley. And right now, I'm seeing the same thing from those three guys, is that, like, they're really forcing the issue. They're trying to create their own shots. I mean, obviously these guys are, you know, they're a year or two away from getting that new that rookie extension contract, right? They're trying to get a hold of that contract. You know, that's the reason why I think Marvin Bagley's trying to push for more playing time and trying to push to play for and to get more minutes. And to also, you know, get the ball a little bit more in his hands because he's trying to make plays. And by making plays, he feels like he's going to get the money. And I feel like a lot of these guys are doing the same thing. I mean, Trae Young is also kind of doing the same thing. He kind of wants that Steph Curry contract. But the one thing I think they need to realize is that, like, the way that you're playing right now is just not conductive to winning basketball right now. It's ways that they're just, the ways that they're playing right now is just not good. It's really hurting them. And right now, like, the team and just what I'm seeing, you know, these teams are struggling against one another. I mean, Luka Doncic, like you said, he's taking way too many threes and not hitting enough, but Trae is doing too much of everything, in your opinion. I mean, the thing is, like, I think Luka right now is probably in danger of not winning the MVP, which everyone predicted him to. I know that it's early in the season. We're only, 8 to 10 games in? I think 8 games in. I mean, that's what it's looking like for Trae Young and the Hawks. And I think that he's going to lose that season MVP momentarily because right now it's just not looking too hot. You know, like I said, he's trying to force too much. At one point, him and McGee were tied for most 3-pointers, or tied for the same amount of 3-pointers made. And, you know, we all know that Luka's way better than that. And we know that Trae Young is way better than he's playing right now. I mean, right now he's averaging about 5.1 turnovers a game. That is just not going to cut it. I understand he's the point guard. You know, he had 4.9 last season. The only difference between Trae, Luka, and Bagley is that the team surrounding them. Trae doesn't need to play like that way. Luka needs to play like that way, and to a certain extent with the team around him. And that's true. And my friend Josh, who's a big, stout or staunch Atlanta Hawks fan, like he says the same thing. Like, obviously, you know, this is kind of like a goodbye to Collins, or that's what he said. And he's kind of like in the situation of, like, he knows that Collins is right, and I just don't know if the organization's going to really support Collins and what he's saying, and are going to listen to a guy like Trae Young, who kind of said, no, I don't really agree with what Collins said. I mean, that's the thing we also have to look at too in this situation, and we have to see here in the story itself, that while there was no back and forth between the two, Young made it clear that he strongly disagreed with the assertion of Collins. And that, to me, is one of those things where I think that if they don't start winning at least, you know, 60% of their games and not going 50-50 all the time and losing to these, like, really, like, I wouldn't say like low bad teams, but more so, I mean, like, right now you should be winning against teams like the Knicks. You should be winning teams against, like, the Charlotte Hornets. I understand that they have Maga Hayward and they have Terry Rozier and all this other things, but what I am seeing here is that, like, you do have to start utilizing the talent you have around you. And you shouldn't be losing these games because your team is that much better. You know, you got Bogey for a reason. You got John Collins. You know, you're debating. You know, you offered the guy $90 million because you obviously see something in him. And it's just one of those things. And Eoy, who do you have winning the MVP? I had Anthony Davis winning the MVP. But the only problem with that one, and I think it's kind of the opposite problem with what these guys have, is that I feel like Anthony Davis at times does not assert himself as a dominant superstar. I think he thinks he needs to kind of like lay back a little bit, and that's something that I think the mentality of Anthony Davis needs to change. Because I think what I would like to see here is more MAGA Hayward. Yeah, I mean, it is MAGA Hayward. But nevertheless, just don't want to throw out names, but it is what it is. It's just one of those things where it's like Anthony Davis, and going to your point, Eoy, about like who I think is going to win the MVP. Anthony Davis, I feel like, is not assertive enough, in my opinion, to really warrant him to win the MVP. I would love him. I think he has the tools and the capability of like competing with guys like this. A 6'11", almost 7 foot tall player with the ability to shoot the rock, handle the ball, and also drive to the rim and score at will. That to me is like one of those things where it's like I'm really just kind of like, like I want him to win the MVP, and that's kind of like the reason why I had him winning the MVP, is because I thought this year he's going to be the number one guy. LeBron James is like, we're going to play through you. Hayward Storm, hey man, there's a reason why he played well there's a reason why he played well on Wednesday night. I won't say why, but at the end of the day, just kind of going back to the talking points here for me. I think the frustrating thing for me is the fact that like Anthony Davis is just not assertive enough. And just kind of going back to the Trae Young situation that we're talking about here, Young vehemently disagreed with Collins here. And, I don't think that Trae Young is a confrontational guy. I also think that John Collins is not a confrontational guy. But I do think that maybe I shouldn't say that, because John Collins actually did call out Trae Young in this conversation. But at the end of the day, what we're seeing here is that I don't know if at this point that Collins, depending on how the organization views Collins, like he could potentially be gone. And I don't necessarily think that Collins was wrong in calling out Trae Young, because in order for this thing to work, and the reason why I praised him so much, or I should say Trae Young so much, is because I think he's a better passer than Steph Curry. And I still vehemently believe that. Steph Curry, I think, is a good passer, but Trae Young is a great passer. And I think that maybe he might not be as good of a shooter as a guy like Steph Curry, but he's still very consistent with the shot. And that's the reason why I said that he could potentially be a better player than Steph Curry, because Trae Young also doesn't have the ankle injury history like a guy like Steph Curry does. Even with, let's see, like if Curry was healthy, man, he'd probably go down as one of the all-time greats, in top 10. I'm late. What did Colin say? I've been too busy looking at the Deshaun Watson drama. Hey, Tyrese, how you doing? So, I tended to reiterate kind of the situation at hand. We had John Collins calling out Trae Young and how the offenses ran through him. So to kind of summarize this article for you, Eoy, basically Collins is saying that the team is shooting the ball too much, or like I should say Trae Young is Celtics definitely be looking better. I mean, Jaylen Brown definitely doing his part right now. But Eoy, Collins just discussed to the Hawks they need to get more into offensive sets, get through the plays. But he's arguing with Trae Young that Trae Young is taking way too many shots. He's taking him way too early in the shot clock, and just creating a whole situation at hand where they lost the last two games, especially against the Knicks and the Charlotte Hornets. I mean, that's going to be a big problem. And I don't necessarily, like I said, I don't necessarily disagree with Collins, but I'm wondering if the organization is going to be more on the side of Trae Young, and kind of him saying that he vehemently disagrees. And we'll talk a little bit about the Celtics, Tyrese, because we do have some breaking news about their COVID situation at hand. It's frustrating because we're going to be now super thin at the big position, which is going to really cost us. Celtics might be looking at this John Collins situation. I'm saying we need a PF. I mean, the thing is that I just don't feel like John Collins, like, for what we need, like, he's a better version of Robert Williams without the defensive shot blocking. But I don't know. Like, I think that John Collins, I don't think he does what we need in terms of, like, he's a good scoring big, but you need to feed him the ball. He can put the ball on the ground and go to the tin and score, but it's still a concern for me that I don't know if I'm willing to pay that much for a guy like John Collins. Not saying that John Collins isn't worth the money. I just don't necessarily think he fits our system. And besides, he's kind of almost a similar height, if not kind of the similar, not saying similar player to Jason Tatum, because Jason Tatum's obviously a better ball handler. But, I just don't necessarily agree with the lineup of a guy like John Collins and Jason Tatum in the same lineup, with basically Jason Tatum playing your power forward, and then you have John Collins playing your center. Unless you want to go with Theis as your center and kind of go a little bit smaller that way. I don't know. We'll see what happens, though. But it will be an interesting situation. But yeah, going back to this, right now we're seeing just kind of, I would say growing pains for the Atlanta Hawks, because, everyone, and I think everybody expected, just like they did with the, I would say, what team was it? The Brooklyn Nets, right? They expected the Brooklyn Nets to click well and mesh well, like, already, but defensively, you're seeing their liabilities. They're probably one of the worst defensive rebounding teams that I think I've ever seen before. Like, you have a guy like DeAndre Jordan, you have a guy like Jared Allen, but they still can't rebound over them. And it's just kind of one of those things where you have to see, what's going to be going on in that situation. But, at the end of the day, we'll see if they can kind of get through this growing pains. I understand. Let me make sure my camera is not blurry. I think it's a little bit blurry. But man, why is my camera so blurry? All right. I'm just going to play with it later. But yeah, it's just one of those things that you want to see from the team, and it's just kind of like you want to see from your organization, is that like you can get through these growing pains. And we'll see if John Collins and Trae Young can get through those growing pains. And just kind of gonna reiterate your point, Tyrese, about you'd rather have Collins next to Thompson than Theis. I think Collins and Thompson, we do have to talk about the COVID situation with him, and also Seth Curry and other stuff like that. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. But like I said, just to kind of finish off the story, because we've been on it for almost like 15, 20 minutes. Basically, this is going to be growing pains. We'll see if they can get contract extension dealt with, and we'll see if the Atlanta Hawks can get past these growing pains. But let's move on to our next story, as we got to talk about this Tristan Thompson, Robert Williams, Grant Williams, and also Seth Curry. We got to talk about that one, because to me, that one's a little bit more serious than I feel like than this one, to be honest with you. But the Boston Celtics will have 3 players out for a minimum of 7 days with quarantine due to health and safety protocols. So Robert Williams, Tristan Thompson, and Grant Williams, which kind of sucks because Grant Williams is kind of our kind of role player besides Peyton Pritchard at this point. And the Celtics will be required to quarantine. And it's just like you got basically Theis and Taco Fall as your big man. And that to me is just a recipe for disaster. I love Taco. I think he's a good player. Well, I should say, a great player for his size, but he's just not good enough to be like even a remotely good backup center at this point. Like, he's not a Boban Marjanovic yet. He's working to become that. But at the end of the day, it is going to be a little bit concerning that we're going to be without some of our role players, especially Robert Williams and Tristan Thompson. That's like 2 of our centers out with the COVID. And so I don't want to necessarily see that right now. We are on a roll. We're starting to get a little bit better. We're starting to finally get our groove. Jaylen Brown has been balling out right now. I would say that he's probably our best player. And then you have Jason Tatum and them kind of like, I feel like a lot of people kind of said that Jason Tatum was up here, and then you kind of had Jaylen Brown down here. Now I feel like it's about even. I definitely think it's even. It's more even than it's ever been for who our best player is in the NBA, or for the Boston Celtics, I should say. So it will be a fun situation to watch, see them grow, see them develop, because like I said, I do think that our team is good enough to, I had a little bit of concerns just because that's how Jason Tatum was playing. But now that I'm seeing the emergence of Jaylen Brown and how everyone's kind of saying like Brown has really kind of stepped up his game, I'm excited to see what this team is going to come up with for the near future. But this is a very serious situation, losing our two, or I should say 3 players that really give us significant minutes. It's going to rely on guys like Carson Edwards. It's going to rely on many other guys, that we're gonna lose potentially, and so we need to do a better job of making sure that those guys are taken care of, that they're being safe when they go out, and none of this or I should say like health and safety protocols is going to affect our teams. I'm sure LeBron James is saying that to his LA Lakers teams. Kuzma, you better make sure you're not going out. And so that's kind of what I want to see from the rest of our team. It's just like we get that kind of same energy in that aspect. So, at the end of the day, I do think that this is going to be a very interesting situation to watch, to see at hand, whether or not the Boston Celtics can recover from that. But the real story that I really want to talk about is the Seth Curry news, because this to me is kind of the biggest one. We got to talk about this as a situation.
Introducing my brand new chicken.
All right. Enough of this chicken commercial. I'm done with you. 76ers Seth Curry tests positive for COVID-19. Team expects to lose players to contact tracing per reports. You think Collins is the only one on the Hawks who feels this way? I think the Hawks may be in for a bit of a rough spot, but I'm also a hater. I know you're a hater, Pete. I mean, me and Josh talked about it. You do have a little bit of a hater vibe, but you're not wrong in your assessment that I think a lot of players on the Hawks right now are feeling a little bit, I would say, slighted, because, I mean, you're seeing when the team plays well and Trae Young passes the ball more, you see the assist numbers up. I think the team plays a lot better. But when you see him taking a lot of shots, he's taking a lot of floaters, a lot of layups, a lot of like mid-range pull-up jumpers, and those aren't necessarily the most high percentage shots for him, especially the floater right now. I feel like he's taking way too many of those. When his floater's hitting, hey man, he's impossible to stop. But more often than not, his floater is not going to win him games. And so, I want to see him pass the ball a little bit more and get the offense going, because I think Lloyd Pierce, a Greg Popovich guy from the Popovich system, ball movement is probably his number one thing that he wants to see. Lloyd Pierce, that is, because he doesn't want to see like Trae Young ISO. He doesn't want to be D'Antoni. He wants to kind of have some D'Antoni-esque offense to him. But he doesn't want to like necessarily completely go away from the principle of making sure that you make the extra pass, making sure that you move around, and making sure that you're able to shift the defense so you're able to get better looks for your teammates. But that's kind of my opinion on that. But let me take a sip of water and let's talk about this COVID situation for the 76ers. So nearing the start of the game in the Brooklyn on Thursday on TNT, the 76ers got word that Seth Curry had just tested positive for COVID-19 per ESPN Adrian Wojnarowski, who added that Curry, who initially ruled out of the game with a sore ankle, spent the first quarter on the Sixers bench before being put in an isolation room and eventually leaving the arena separate from the team. Shams of The Athletic reported that the Philadelphia entire team will now quarantine in New York and contract tracing will now begin. Beyond that quarantine period, Adrian Wojnarowski went on to report that the 76ers are expected to have multiple players to miss time due to COVID to contact tracing and are still awaiting results of Friday's coronavirus testing. The fact that Seth Curry spent the first quarter on the bench before the 76ers learned of his positive result is obviously concerning. Joel Embiid, who sat next to Curry on the bench, intends to self-quarantine away from his family until he's sure that he didn't contact the virus. That, of course, coming from Ramona Shelburne. For the time being, the Sixers are scheduled to play at Denver on Saturday. And, man, is this to me... This has to go on the 76ers. This has to go on the NBA. This, to me, is probably one of the biggest mess-ups that I can remember the NBA creating. And the NBA doesn't mess up normally. Maybe some other things that we'll talk about probably on a later date. But this, to me, is a bad problem. I think results should be in immediately before the game. This should be in before these players enter in the arena. You should be testing them individually with no one around, 6 feet, social distancing, whatever you want to do, and you have to wait until you get a result. It can no longer be on the bench, oh, now we found out that he's actually positive. I think we need to know how these testing works, and maybe they do have it somewhere, and if you guys can find it for me, that would be greatly appreciated, because I would love to read, what the process and the progress and kind of really what's going on and how these players are somehow still, Seth Curry wasn't going to play that night. He was on the bench and he was talking to his teammates, obviously wearing a mask and doing other stuff like that. But these players take off their masks when they're yelling and they want to cheer on their teammates. I don't have a problem with that. The only problem I have here is that the 76ers didn't test their players early enough to where you're worried because you're like, oh, he's fine, it's whatever. No, you have to take this serious. And so I want to see this. I want to see the NBA hold the 76ers, and I want the NBA itself to hold themselves accountable to what the heck just happened, because this, to me, I think this is unacceptable. I think at the end of the day, the teams need to do a better job of making sure that these tests are done with the appropriate amount of time to where even a bench player or a two-way contract player or anybody that's going to be on the bench or in the arena that is part of the organization, they need to make sure that that test comes back negative. Or if it's inconclusive or anything like that, make him take it again and wait a little bit. Because to be honest with you, this to me is frustrating because this to me, if the 76ers, the whole 76ers organization has to miss Saturday's game, I think they have to forfeit. I think there's too many games to kind of backlog and say like, okay, we're going to actually put the game here. It's going to be a back-to-back game, so you're going to have to play twice in one day. Like, I don't want to see that happen for the NBA, and I don't want to see that happen for the 76ers. So I think for the best interest of the NBA, you're going to have that team forfeit the game. I'm sorry. Like, that's on you for not doing your tests early enough. That's on the NBA for not really taking care of their players. And I want you guys to kind of sound off in the live chat for me. What you guys think of my assessment of this? I mean, do you think that the teams that don't really do a good job and you see that there's a positive case, you see the thing that Seth Curry's on the bench, like should the 76ers, if all their players test back positive or they don't have enough players to fill the roster, do you guys think that the 76ers should forfeit that game and give the win to the Denver Nuggets? Let me know if I'm crazy for thinking like that. But the reason why I am thinking like that is because I want to see the team, or I want to see the teams kind of, talk about it. I want to see the NBA really, put their foot down and actually do something about these tests. I mean, like whether you believe in whether it's deadly or not, or whatever it is, this is kind of the new norm that you have to deal with as an NBA player. This is the kind of norm you have to deal with as an athlete who is playing a professional sport. You're going to have to start doing these tests, man. And you're going to have to start really being a hard, to make sure that these players, these coaches, anybody associated with the staff, ball boy, staff manager, or, team equipment guy, doesn't matter who, camera guys, videographer, doesn't matter who. They have to make sure that they are testing negative and are doing the safe and proper precautions to making sure that no one contracts the virus, and causing the team to miss most of their players. And this to me is just frustrating in my opinion, because I want to know why there was such a bad kind of communication here. I mean, it's just one of those things that I just want to see. But at the end of the day, we'll see what happens. Like I said, let me know in the comment section down below. What do you guys think of this whole story? Do I have a point, or do you think I'm kind of going crazy with this whole story? Let me know in the comment section down below, or let me know in the live chat what you guys think of that story. But let's kind of move on back to the, let me see if I can get back to not Bing. Here we go. Good news for the Boston Celtics. We got Kemba Walker, who has been officially cleared for practice. That's actually great news. Kemba Walker obviously will help our offense out. And now that we're going to kind of go to like Peyton Pritchard as a role player and kind of giving you some significant minutes, I think Peyton Pritchard, being like the third guard for us is actually going to be a really good idea. You got guys like Jeff Teague, who's more of a scoring guard, like scoring combo guard. You have more Peyton Pritchard, more of like an all-around guard that can do everything, but mostly likes to get his teammates involved and get everybody open space and kind of talk about that. So, like I said, let me know in the comment section down below. What do you guys think of this Kemba Walker news? I think it's exciting. I think it'll be fun. And finally, we'll have a team that's fully healthy. Obviously, Kemba Walker is still I would probably say maybe another like couple weeks away from really being fully healthy. But it will still be a fun situation to kind of watch at hand. Michael Porter Jr. faces an additional 10 to 14 days of quarantine. I'm assuming that he probably broke protein protocols. This is pretty interesting. And then we got here to kind of talk about a topic that we talked about earlier in the week. Seattle Mayor is pretty optimistic over landing a team. So Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin, who I vehemently dislike, I think she tried to play both sides and she got, I don't know. I don't want to talk politics on here, but I don't really like her that much. But Mayor Jenny Durkin said that she was pretty optimistic that Seattle would land an NBA expansion team after speaking with Adam Silver. I was honest with him. He knows Seattle wants to be in the front line. You think there will be a chance where they may start forcing teams to socially distance non-uniform players from active guys? the thing is, I mean, they practice anyway with each other when they do have practice. So I don't know about that. But what I think you need to start doing, and maybe this might be a little bit harsh, but I think you need to start putting the players in the stands. I think that that's kind of the way that you do it, because you can actually social distance guys when you put them in the stands. Like when you put like Seth Curry, instead of sitting on the bench, with the team. Like, here's the thing. If you have an inconclusive test or you don't really know the results of your test, you really shouldn't even be in the stadium, like, with the rest of the team anyway. Why not just put them in the arena, like, outside, sitting in a section where, like, the workers aren't sitting down or anything like that. Like, put them, like, maybe on the same side as you. I understand that you put the I don't even know what you call those things, like the cloth over the seats. Take off a little bit of the section, and then actually have them sit in that area. And then if they're still waiting for their test and they come back negative, they can join back in at the bottom. But like when they're like, obviously those guys are not going to take precedent over guys like that are actually going to play in the game. So I'm assuming because Seth Curry was like, hey, my ankle's kind of bummy right now, I'm going to sit out of this game. So I'm assuming he probably got the test last or close to last, and probably didn't get results. And they were like, okay, here you go, kind of enjoy your day. But instead of like holding him in a room, maybe not holding him in a room, because that kind of sounds a little bit, like interrogation type of stuff. But, maybe just kind of set back and say like, okay, Seth Curry, we want you to kind of chill in here and wait until you get a full, I should say, make sure you wait until you get your test back and we see that you come back negative. Then you are good to go. If you come back positive, sorry, you got to go, and you can self-isolate and they don't have to deal with like this sort of quarantine stuff. I think this time around we need a little more info on Seth Curry and where he was in contact, but I'd agree with the forfeit if he didn't follow protocol. Like, even if he followed protocol, Pete, like and I wish you weren't busy with work, because I'd love to talk to you about this live. My whole thing though is that, like, look, if you know that Seth Curry, like, if you're still waiting on his test, why is he even with the team? Like, that's the thing that I want to know. Like, the one thing that I would like to know, and maybe we can talk to Sham or Wojnarowski and kind of talk about like the procedure of getting a test, where you wait for your result, and like, do you join the team? Like, obviously there was some sort of miscommunication. Like, I don't know if Seth Curry's like, nah, I'm fine, and he just kind of didn't follow protocol, or whatever the situation is. But I think the NBA needs to do a better job of communicating with their fans, because like this could be a serious scenario where Joel Embiid might be positive, Ben Simmons might be positive, and basically, the hot start that the 76ers on is going to get derailed because of COVID. It's not going to get derailed because they're not playing well or playing good, or they're playing better and they're going to win more games, or they're losing because they're struggling to shoot and other stuff like that. Like, we want to talk about that being the reason why the 76ers are struggling, instead of, COVID made them lose like 10 or 12 games because they decided that they didn't do a good job. Or I should say, like, they didn't do a good job of quarantining, or, having the players wait until they get a result. And that's kind of the situation I'm at right now with the whole thing, is like, I want to see some more, I would say more info, some more news on like how the protocol is working. Like, do the players wait in a room and once they get cleared, they go in? However, if Durkin gets us a pro team, we love her. I think she's doing this just to save her career, honestly. I mean, after the stuff and the thing, I don't want to get political with it, because I understand that some people are not into it. But here's what I will say. I think she tried to cater too much to one side, and then when she realized that they came to her house, she was like, no way, I'm done with you guys, and basically threw them away. So she's basically she tried to play both sides. She failed at it, and now she caught with a foot in her mouth. And it's just like, it's one of those things, like, I don't know. She's kind of a hypocrite, and I don't want to deal with her at the moment. But like, if she does bring a team back, it will be like, congrats, thank you. Seattle deserved a team for many years after what the Oklahoma City Thunder owner did to us. And also what Howard Schultz did, the Starbucks guy. Can't forgive him either. He's kind of a clown in this. I feel like both, I mean, to kind of put it lightly and to kind of talk about it even more, those two were probably the biggest clowns in this whole scenario. I mean, we understand that the owner was trying to ask for way too much. He was trying to ask for the fans to pay for the stadium. Meanwhile, I'm pretty sure let me see if taxpayers paid for the stadium. That's what I want to know. So let me see if they paid for it. Let me see here. OKC. I want to see if they did that or not. Okay, so it looks like the taxpayers did pay for this stadium. So, I probably have to take back a little bit of my words because, in all honesty, guys, like the one thing that did frustrate me is that, like, obviously, I don't blame taxpayers for wanting to pay for this stuff. Like, it is a luxury. I think that there is some renovation that definitely need to be done, and they are being done right now currently at the Key Arena. And I'm still going to call it Key Arena because I refuse to call it the whatever the long title, the gimmick arena in Seattle. Like it's the Key Arena. But the one thing that I will say about it is that I think that he wasn't genuine. He knew that the stuff that he was asking for was not going to get approved, and he used it as an excuse to be like, well, if they're not going to help me here, I'm just going to move the team out. And still, it was kind of one of those things, man. If you were starting an expansion team in Seattle, who would be your first pick in last year's draft class? Who would be my first pick? Last year's draft class. So what do you have? The Anthony Edwards, James Wiseman. Honestly, and this will shock a lot of you, I would either have, if I had to pick a player, I would either choose Tyrese Halliburton or I would choose LaMelo Ball. I think that guards are still very important. And if you get longer, lankier guards that can score the rock and be more efficient, I mean, that's a huge advantage. I like James Wiseman. I think he's going to be good, but I still think he needs some more assets around him in order to be a very good player. Anthony Edwards, I think, is still growing, but I don't know if he's someone that I would call him a franchise player. Like, I feel like if you're going to talk franchise, honestly, Halliburton or LaMelo Ball, I think between those two, that would be it. But if the Seattle expansion team, which according to the NBA, an expansion team is not likely until 2022. So, I mean, if we look at the NBA 2022 class, let's go here. Oopsie, not 2020. We need 2022. Whoops. This is the 2022 draft mock. So you have Chet Holmgren, who we know about. Paulo, which of course is from the Seattle area. I could see, Seattle really having him be the guy. Bronny's next year. So Bronny would be 2023. Yannick Nzosa, I don't know him. There's a lot of guys on this list that I really have to study, but I know Chet Holmgren is definitely on everybody's list because he is a very tall guy. He's a 7-foot guy with the 7'3" wingspan. Probably, a great scorer of the rock. But what I think is going to be an interesting situation to look at, guys, is going to be, Seattle is probably not going to get a team until 2022. Obviously it's probably going to be top 8 players protected. And we're going to see like the situation at hand as to like what players that, the top 8, like which top 8 players for each team could we pick? I mean, here's what I will do. And maybe I can do this with you, Pete, or with you, Logan, whenever you guys want to get on the show. Is kind of do a situation where we look at the best 8 players on each team, and then from the rest of that, we do a little mock draft between the 2 expansion teams that are going to come, and I think that's something that we can play with. So, I'll get back to you guys on that. I think that'll be a fun kind of little story, or maybe not story, but more fun little activity to do as a group. Like I'm freaking like a teacher over here. But I think it would be fun to do to kind of like do like a back and forth, and then with the number 1 pick overall for both teams, which player do you pick and which one do you want? And we'll kind of do it from that way. But, kind of looking again, not till 2022. I mean, this is going to be kind of a situation where it's just going to be like, I'm hoping that we're able to get a team, man. I think it's been too long that Seattle hasn't had a team. I haven't watched basketball in Seattle like professionally in probably forever. I mean, I tried to go to the Warriors game when they were here. When I think they played the Kings, if I'm not mistaken. I tried to go to that, but I was just not interested in kind of watching that because I the Key Arena is a very, I wouldn't say sacred, but it's a very important place. A lot of state championship finals took place in that arena back in the day in the 90s. Obviously, you know, learning my history about that, working for the basketball team that I do, you kind of learn about that, especially, you know, when you got like the Metro League here. Wait, Pete, are you behind on the stream? You must be behind on the stream, because you're so far behind. I was wondering why you're like talking like the stream like that. But yeah, I mean, just at the end of the day, we're kind of seeing what we're looking at here. You know, I think that the Key Arena is going to be a sacred place once again, and I would love, honestly, for the state tournament to come back to the Key Arena. I think that's kind of the thing that I would love to see return for Seattle basketball, is actually the Key Arena being used for basketball once again. You know, I think it's been way too long. It's been way too many years. I mean, I know that the Seattle Storm play there, and, you know, we love our Seattle Storm here in Seattle. Maybe some people don't. Some people do. But I think that we want basketball to return there. No, leave him on the Knicks. Song should go with Halliburton for sure. Fast forward home. Yeah, he needs to fast forward a little bit. I'm having some like weird static situations. So let me put on some music really quick and I will be right back. Let me see here. I'm just going to fix some situations at hand. Hang on 1 second, guys. Alrighty, we are back and we are gonna get back into the story. Just 1 second, guys. I fixed what I needed to fix. Here we go. Let me back. Okay, cool. We are back. But yeah, just kind of talking about like the situation at hand, guys. I mean, this is kind of one of the things that I really want to kind of see from the Supersonics, and just kind of like, you know, the Seattle area itself. I'm hoping that the Seattle Supersonics, one, I hope they don't change their name. I mean, let's talk about this. All right, for my guys that are Seattle fans in the comment section or in the live chat, or if anybody is want to kind of put their own opinions on this thing, should the Seattle team be called the Supersonics, or would you like them to go by a different team? Would you like them to go by a different name? Like, what is your guys' opinion on that? I think that they should remain the Supersonics. I think that that's kind of a legendary name. Well, not legend. Well, it is a legendary name, but more so like a legendary situation, man. I don't know, situation. Blah, I'm talking out of my butt right now. It's a very sacred name for NBA basketball here in Seattle. You know, Supersonics always had that green and yellow, and just kind of like a color that's not really that traditional, but everybody loved the color of the 206. And I hope that they're able to keep the same colors. My one concern, and the one thing I'm worried about, is, of course, the Oklahoma City Thunder and them having the rights to our history. And I'm hoping that it changes. Like once we get an expansion team, we get those rights back. Because that's the one thing that concerns me. I feel like Clay Bennett is going to stick it to us one more time. And I feel like the one way he's going to stick it to us is honestly by keeping the history, and we're going to have to go by a different name. That's my one thing. It's like the Rams changed back their name when they came back. Yeah, I mean, I understand that. Obviously, I don't want that to happen for the Supersonics. I want them to keep their name. I want them to keep their colors. But my one worry and concern is that I believe that Clay Bennett owns the right. I believe he owns the right to the name Supersonics and owns the history. So let me look at this really quick. This to me is the biggest worry, and that this is an article from 2012. So obviously it's not recent, but this is my worry, and it's an article from 2012. So the article starts off: for longtime basketball fans in the region, invoking the names of the Seattle Supersonics can get rankled even the years after the team left the town. Here it is. A spokesperson with the city attorney's office says that while it is a possibility of using the Sonic name again, the NBA would need to approve of this name for a team in Seattle, and the Oklahoma City team has some rights to the team history that would need to be transferred. This would be, to me, a big kick in the nuts if we were not able to keep the history. And Super Duper Sonics isn't taken. But no, it is a sad thing, right? Because I think that Clay Bennett is one of those guys. I feel like Clay Bennett kind of reminds me of that guy that has all the toys in the sandbox, and it's just as soon as like something doesn't go his way, he's taking those toys and going home with it. And that's those situations that I'm worried about here as a Sonics fan here in Seattle, is that I feel like, and don't get me wrong, I do feel like that Clay Bennett is going to probably use the Seattle Supersonics name at some point before the expansion team comes in to kind of, I would say honestly, and this is just me being pessimistic, to basically give our city a middle finger before we get the team. And you know, it's going to be one of those things where I could definitely see him be like, yeah, we're not going to give you the Sonics team. I'm going to keep the history. Because, I mean, who doesn't want to keep that Larry O'Brien trophy in their cabinet, even though they didn't really earn it, right? They're like a new expansion team, basically. But basically, the NBA would need to approve the name to the team, and the Oklahoma City owns the team rights for the history. I think once we get a team, for the PR purposes and just as a good faith, Clay Bennett will give us our history back, Brown said. Regardless of what happens with any new team, NBA fans should just be happy once again they have local basketball, but it certainly wouldn't not hurt anything if the Seattle Supersonics made their triumphant return. And to be honest with you, I think that we should not settle for anything less than getting back the original name, our history, and the colors, and the uniforms, and the ownership of our uniforms for Seattle. Because at the end of the day, like Clay Bennett, wants to make it Oklahoma. He doesn't want to make it Supersonics in Seattle. And so, and I think the reason why he also didn't have like a Sonics night or anything like that is because he knows that like if he does any of that, ooh, man, I think that the backlash would be huge. Like it wouldn't be a situation where the Oklahoma City Thunder would just look like a bunch of fools if they did, have Supersonic night in Oklahoma City or anything like that. But me as a pessimistic guy, when it comes to like the Seattle Supersonics, because we've been promised a team for so long. We tried to buy the Sacramento Kings. That fell through because the governor of Sacramento was really high on keeping this team. And that's kind of the thing that kind of disappoints me, is that like we didn't have someone like that in our government. Like I can't remember who the dude was. It was some dude that just didn't do a good job of keeping the team here. And I'm hoping that we were able to do this. I mean, we talk about here, Clay Bennett didn't exactly give up that Sonic legacy. It's been widely reported that the city of Seattle gets to keep all the name, history, and colors and all that. Not exactly. The name and color uniforms, they are safe. But what about the other stuff? That's trickier. Evidence suggests that the Oklahoma City TBD are hanging on a fair amount of Sonic history. Percy Allen. Bennett retains the rights to the Supersonics name, history, and colors, but does not intend to use them, saying he will return them to a team if a team returns to Seattle in the Seattle term. Bennett said that at a news conference in Oklahoma City that the original team banners and the 79 trophy will stay in Seattle, but we will create duplicate banners and championship trophy that we believe assets we want to have. It all comes down to page 6 currently, so here it is. PBC agrees that it will not use the Seattle Supersonics, Sonics team name, or any logo, symbols, designs, trade dress, including but not limited to team colors or other incra associated with Seattle Seattle Sonics/Supersonics, the intellectual property for purpose of identifying the NBA team, competition, marketing, promotion, and other similar purposes following the relocation of the team to Oklahoma City. The paragraph is followed with many instances in which there are exceptions, which I will attempt to put them in English. A new team must move to a renovated Key Arena. Howard Schultz lawsuit has to be gone. What we now call the Sonics must be ensconced in Oklahoma City. The NBA has to approve all of the above. So basically, the NBA has to approve everything that on that list in order for us to even have remotely the rights to those things. The name, the colors, the championship history. Like, I know we only won, I believe, one championship for the Supersonics, but man, it's going to be one of those things that I could see Clay Bennett going to battle for and going to war for by keeping the Seattle history and tradition, especially the championships. Because, you know, I don't... That to me is going to be the frustrating part. Because, I mean, I think what I saw here is that the Bobcats are going to have... I don't know if the Bobcat... Like, when the Bobcats now became the Charlotte Hornets, I don't know if, like, the Bobcats history is associated with the Charlotte Hornets, or if like the New Orleans Pelicans, like if that history is like the New Orleans Hornets. Like, I don't know what that sort of like situation is at hand, but it's a very tricky one to really deal with. And it's just kind of one of the things where it's, you know, you want to see the Seattle Supersonics come back. You want to see them have the original. This is for LeVar, free little. That startled me right there. Thank you so much, Human Beyblade, for the $3 donation. This is for LeVar, free little Durkin. Thank you so much for that. I just got startled. I just saw something on my screen. I was like, what the heck? But yeah, it is. It's going to be a very interesting situation. And guys, we'll see what happens with the Supersonics. I am very optimistic. I am. But we'll see if the Clay Bennett and the NBA keeps their word. Lets us know that there will be a team. I mean, the reason why I think we have a better shot than ever to get this team is because during the pandemic, the NBA has lost millions of dollars, and by adding a team with the expansion kind of tax that the owners have to pay for, that money will circulate into the NBA and grow more revenue. And I think adding 2 more teams isn't going to necessarily hurt. And again, Human Beyblade, thank you once again for donating to the channel. But anyway, guys, I think that is going to do it here for The Charge. Thank you once again for joining me here on The Charge, giving you the latest NBA news and rumors and also basketball opinions. I hope everyone has a great weekend, making sure that you guys are staying safe, staying healthy, watching some great NFL football, also watching some great basketball. Of course, I'm going to be watching the LaMelo Ball, Lonzo Ball rivalry, not rivalry, but more so game against one another. It'll be fun. I think it's on ESPN, so go and check that out. But anyway, guys, like I said, hit that like button. Also remember to hit that subscribe button if you're new. 2021 is going to be the year we hit 1,000 subscribers. Help me reach that goal. Help me reach out to it. Let me know. Get other people involved onto the channel. Get them to join the comment section. Get them to subscribe to the channel. Get them to like the videos so we can enjoy our NBA content. Can we get this video to 5 likes? Can we get 5 likes on this video before we sign out of here? But anyway, guys, like I said, my name is Bernie. Thank you once again. And Pete, I believe you have one more question before we head out of here. How many points are the Knicks going to win by tonight? Say it slowly so I can savor it. Who are the Knicks playing? Oklahoma City. Alrighty. I got the New York Knicks winning by 5 points tonight. 5. I'm going 5 points for the New York Knicks winning it tonight. I got Austin Rivers hitting a big 3, and then they basically seal it off with 2 free throws at the end, and they win by 5 points. 1-1. I would say 108 to 105. That's going to be my final score. I have the Knicks winning it 108 to 105 against the Oklahoma City Thunder. That is my prediction. That is what I'm going with. But anyway, guys, like I said, my name is Bernie. Thank you once again for joining me here on The Charge. Please remember to hit that like button. Also remember to hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Remember, guys, more likes, more subscribers means more people will watch the content. Sorry, I just read Pete's comment. Whoa, fan me off. It's hot in here. Hey, man, the Knicks are looking good. I know that New York Knicks fans are getting excited right now in New York, especially, you know, with the way things are going. Hopefully this will bring some brighter news to New York Knicks fans that are in the New York area, and also the people that are not in the New York area. But anyway, guys, like I said, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, get this channel to 1,000 subscribers, and we will catch you on the next video. Anyway, guys, I'll catch you later. Peace.